So, yeah, it's full. So thank you for coming to my talk. I want to speak a bit about Plone security in context. First of all, what is security? The two parts, IT security and safety. So we do normally speak about those infosec triads, confidentiality, integrity, availability. The problem with that, those are the attack vectors the normal systems could apply to. The other part is safety, so the functional correctness. Does the software behave like it should? And it's all about reliability, so that we can work on it, so that it works how it should be. But if we're speaking in context, we should compare to others, because saying one system is secure without any context to others doesn't make any sense. So what is the CMS market? And I normally like the real story vendor map. It shows a lot of the competitors on the market. Those are the relevant ones. So normally, if you look on web content management, that's the light blue line here. We have a lot of systems that is known in the different contexts. So Drupal, Plone is on there, Typo 3, WordPress, and all the others. So, but are all those systems equal? Are they comparable? Actually, no. There's another level of it. The real story group have some very good things. They divide between products and platforms. So a product solves one problem and solves it very good. It's very easy to start with, but if you want to extend it, it's almost impossible. A platform gives you the possibility to adapt and do it for your stuff, but it does not solve it that proper than the product out of the box. So it depends where you go, which type you should choose. I'm always work for universities or larger stuffs where a product never solves the problem, because universities are special. There's always something you have to adapt. So the platforms are make it. So if we look in the open source context, Drupal, Plone, Typo 3 are the three systems in there that normally counts. WordPress, Joomla, Easy Publish, Magnolia, and so on, which are also very good and popular used content management systems, more belong to the product side. But yeah, there's one fantastic approach in Europe. There is the CMS Garden project. It's a combined effort of several open source community marketing open source content management systems, because every product in there solves a different topic. So it's not like we are competitors, we are partners, and we learn from each other how the other works, what they do better, and even members of the different security teams attend to their systems, so we can interact and see what they do better and what they do worst, so that we can learn from each other. So, is Plone secure is one of the main questions. So if we should look at it, we should say it depends. The Plone core itself is pretty secure. But security of an installation depends on the installation itself and how you maintain it. If you have a Plone installation, a Plone 2.5, and it's still running, it may be insecure if you don't have patched it. So basically, yes, Plone is pretty secure. But why is it secure? What are good indicators for security? And that's one of the problems we always see with marketing. Everybody tries to look at, okay, give me some CVE numbers or CVE scores. What's applied to it? Well, it's not a good comparison, because the larger the market share, the more researchers look at the system, the more they found, probably. The number of hacked sites. Yeah, well, is that really a comparison? It is the matter of the admins to keep their system secured. You can even have WordPress, which there is thousands of hacked WordPress sites out there, so secured that nobody hacks it. But that doesn't mean that WordPress itself is that secure or it is so insecure. So sorry, no, don't compare with such a metric. There are other better things, and you should stay objective on comparison. So how to prove security? Security is a process, not a state. You can only work on that process. Every momentum snapshot on looking at this of a security of a system is just for one moment. The next day, a zero-day exploit could pop up. Somebody found something. So you could not test against vulnerabilities or security issues. You can only test against known vulnerabilities. And that's the problem. So if we say, okay, there is a wide variety of problems out there that is known that affects web services. There is the Open Web Application Security Project, which every 3 years does a report on the top 10 security vulnerabilities of web projects. So they make a statistic which are the top 10. So look at your system. Does that apply to your system? That's a good way to look at it. To analyze the process of the developer. How do they work? How do the process of the security team goes? Are vulnerabilities announced official? Is there a bug fix release? Is there a hotfix release? Something like that. What is the release process? Do you have the difference between a bug fix release and a hotfix release? So some don't have. What's the information policy? And another thing, did members of the community or the security team are depend on one company to do some stuff and even to do hot fixing before release of a official hotfix? So the top 10 OWASP report, the last one is from 2013, named injection, broken authentication and session management, cross-site scripting, insecure direct object reference, security misconfiguration, sensitive data exposure, missing function level access control, cross-site request forgettery, using known vulnerable components and unvalidated redirects and forwards as the 10 major vulnerabilities in the web at the moment. If you do a review of all the cores and all the add-on products that are relevant for a system, you probably find some of those in each system. And there are several studies on doing so. So there has been a study in 2013 for a few content management systems, and that's the compared source of vulnerabilities in common CMS. The report from 2013, it's from the German BSI, which is the Federal Office of Information Security. So I guess in US it would be like the US CERT at NIST or a comparable level at the NSA, probably. So there was a study that compared Drupal, Plone, WordPress, Joomla, and Typo3, but just by analyzing the published data of the last 3 years. There's one thing, if we look at it, how much of the vulnerabilities are found in the core or in an add-on? Every other system has the major vulnerabilities in their add-on story. Plone has the major vulnerabilities in its core. Why is it so? It's not because the Plone core is so insecure. we do have a story for add-ons that keep your add-ons secure. So if you add an add-on to a content management system, normally you make it more insecure. For Plone, that's not true in that way. Not necessarily true. You could have some add-ons that make it worse. Well, the problem, if we said always, okay, the security track for Plone is the lowest of every system. As I said before, it's always a point of momentum. The BSI does a second study, 2016. It's not published today. They do much deeper approach. They now did penetration tests of 5 major systems. So they said they take the 3 most used systems in total, which are PHP systems. That is WordPress, Joomla, and Typo 3 for the German market. So not the world market, otherwise it would be Drupal. And they took 2 other technologies, Python and Java. So Plone is the Python content management system, so we go for Plone. Liferay was the most used Java technology in this share, so they do for that. The first column is vulnerabilities in core. The second one is vulnerabilities in add-ons, and the third one is based on the common documentation for hardening your stack on an installation. There was one hardening description fault in the Plone documentation that they saw that could be something. But it's medium level. Yeah. It's all of those vulnerabilities was reported in late April, beginning of May 2016 to the security teams. All of the vulnerabilities in there has already been fixed. But that's just a momentum. The problem with comparing that is you compare apples to oranges. WordPress, Joomla, and Typo 3 were bug fix releases in a minor version that was compared. Plone 5.0 was the base for the report on Plone. So if you just look at raw numbers, it doesn't say something, and that's a problem. But the systems beside, so what, they took another look. What do the systems do to make your system or your installation secure? So there's the question, is Plone more secure in comparison to those other systems? So WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Typo 3 in comparison? Well, yes and no. No, the other CMS itself are also pretty secure. Security is a process and depends on the setup and the maintenance. So if an institution hosts WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, they can do it right. But then you have a system that nobody uses it because you have a very limited set of functionalities, because you have a very limited set of add-ons in those products. The problem is, yes, Plone is more secure because the CMS itself is not enough. For most of the other CMS, you need a lot of add-ons to get functional comparison to Plone. And those are neither maintained or with that security state that the core Plone itself. So, and the other thing is the empirical results we see. Every university has a variety of content management systems. We do see a lot of hacked WordPress, Joomla, Typo 3 pages on our university. Each week get newly hacked. I've never seen a hack on one of our Plone installations. Never. So, but that's empirical. But why seems Plone so more secure? Well, Plone has a different focus. in some way. All the others just publishing web content. Plone has very strengths in intranet. And what it's intranet about? It's about confidentiality of data in some fact, so that you can limit the access to different groups. That makes one of the strengths. And Plone actually is more than a CMS. That's why the Real Story group also added us always in the portal engine type and in the areas before of social stuff. So there's a lot of more things going on there. Python itself makes also a bit of the strengths of Plone, because the Zen of Python, if you can read and understand the code, it's easier to keep it safe. The system design, restricted Python, access control, all the stuff that it's doing can keep the system by design a bit more secure. And there is no SQL database, so you do not have the major injection problem itself. And Plone always choose the best of breed approach. If we don't have to maintain a technology like Pound before, we switch to something HA proxy. We don't use KSS anymore. We switch to pure JavaScript and the libraries. We don't have to do it ourselves. So if you take the best on the market to do your stuff, you have a greater community that cares about that. And one thing that always was named as one of the good things in Plone is our code skeleton generators for add-ons, because that gives a secure base path for adding features to Plone. And that makes you a bit more secure, because you don't do the beginning faults. And there are additional reasons, and some of them sounds pretty obscure. SOAP and Plone is very complex. And if the security researchers or hackers don't understand it, it's security by obscurity. Sorry, it is. Plone did not have the large market share we would like even to have. So it's not interesting for bot networks or hackers that try to get a lot of sites hacked to do something with them. And it's too hard for them with Plone, so you just have to be above the limit to getting attacked. That doesn't mean that you're more secure than the others. And another thing is, if somebody try to invest time and money to hack a Plone site, we have so many high valuable targets, CIA, FBI, government infrastructures, United Nations, and so on. They will get hacked first, and they work with the security teams. So if those exploits come to the wild and go into an attack for one of the normal sites, the security team already knows it or has already have a fix for that. That uses. And the other thing is, Plone is always proud of their security concepts, and they teach about it. So the users of Plone are normally a bit more aware of what is security and how to keep your installation secure. But it's like with all complex systems, they are inevitable. The law of John Gall, a complex system that is work is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that works. A complex system designed from scratch never works and cannot be patched up to make it work. You have to start over with a working, simple system. And that applies to Plone, who have evolved a long time to get to that state. And the other systems grown from a very small block platform or simple website generator to something where Plone actually already is. Plone is one of the enterprise open source content management systems. So back to the basics, safety and IT security. If you look at the safety part, yeah, we do have the Zen of Python, readability counts, explicit is better than implicit. Simple is better than complex. And we do apply to it. We do use it. We try to do it for all of our stuff at the moment. We do have all the code conventions, and as we have seen, even for a typo fix, there are robot tests that checks if a user has signed a contributor agreement. We enforce them on core things. And there are lots of good tools in the community and widely used to ensure that they apply. The other thing is the code skeletons that we use to generate our plugins. But if we look the wider, we do ever document all the 10 problems from the OWASP report, how Plone used to not, or why Plone is not vulnerable in total to that, or how the Plone community tried to avoid being attacked by that. Also, yeah, the whole stuff, but if you go in detail on that, what does it mean? So if we look at confidentiality, we do have the permission and workflow, roles, permission, guard expressions. Did you know that we have read and write guards on every attribute on Plone data? I digged a lot in the restrict.
Most people think they do.
I've digged a lot into restricted patent access control in the last few months. It's pretty astonishing to see what in the whole security design has been done to protect a script or something to not write on an attribute of an object in the ZODB if it's not, the user is not allowed to. And the one problem, normally the BSI or other institutions said, if we rate content management systems, the highest level of security is a medium security, because for high security, even admins should not see data. Well, Plone out of the box said, the manager role can see everything, but we can do custom workflows so that even the manager, the site admin role, did not see the data at all. So what's about integrity and authenticity? So yeah, restricted patent and access control. All attributes and objects has guarded methods for read and write. Permissions to read and write on objects, attributes, views, and everything are applied automatically on all objects and all the things you looked up through the catalog. We do have the history of objects, so we see if someone has changed an object automatically and who has changed it. Setup and Plone development. The common approach is, as done in the Unified Installer or the Ansible playbooks, we do separate between a build-out user and a running daemon. We disallow to change the application itself. The problem in all PHP systems, well, if you're looking in the basics of computer science, we do have the von Neumann architecture or model. So data and code lives in the same memory. Data can overwrite code. Plone did separate it. You could not access the file system of your application through the web without or with the basic Plone core. There are add-ons that try to do that and could do that, but normally you do serve on a different things. If you're looking at PHP systems, your PHP is just the document root of the web pages around, and you have mixed everything. So if you go around, you can touch the file systems in most of the cases and modify your code. So there is a large problem, and that's why the PHP system suffers from the add-ons. they can modify everything because they live in the same application root. Another thing is something like sanitized input. We do filter on every input through the rich text fields. We escape HTML entities on other fields. So if you write an add-on, look out, don't have the structure keyword in a tar render.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Another thing is the Csrf Protection that is built in now for Plone 5, and with Plone 4 Csrf Protection also for Plone 4. If you look about availability, Plone itself, if you just run Plone, could be hard fucked up by availability. There is a lot of things that are long running and don't answer that quick, so it could be. But the documentation always talk about how to do scaling, how to go even into an infinity scaling if necessary, how to do load balancing, even doing upgrades without being down for that time. And we have the caching tricks, so we can do all the stuff with the things we learned in Plone to do a system that is always up and always available, and even cheap rendering. Was it Dylan with thing for the Australian earthquakes protection? They said do a short-term caching, even 1 minute or 5 minutes is fair enough for your site. If you don't get any problems on an emergency, if everybody would like to look at your site and you don't have already scaled up your servers for that problem. And there's also a documentation and in the Ansible playbook to do active bans if there are misbehaving clients. So use it. You can secure your installation. So if we look at the work of security teams around, I do like this picture from Arnhem. Arnhem was a city that was attacked by the Germans in the Second World War and mostly completely destroyed. That's one of the memorials, and there is a sentence in Netherlands, de meeste mensen zwijgen in enkelings dit en dat, which says the most people stay silent only if you act, and that's the normal problem. We do have very few people that act and doing the background stuff where you never get the honor for or something, but to keep the system safe. And those are the security teams mostly. So if we look at security teams, what do other security teams do better than us? Most or some have better communication channel settings. So if the people wanna inform you and wanna do it over a secured communication layer, they published the GPG or SMIME keys for doing so. There is more usage of issue trackers in their communication at the backside. And the Joomla community, for example, has a fantastic setup on communicating with the hosters in Germany. For example, they announce to the hosters, especially if there are known vulnerabilities, and to shut down the systems of their client in some ways, or to get the security team from them in if there are any problems of their systems. So it's giving and taking on both sides. So hosters can provide a better secured system and have the feedback how many users using actually Joomla in which version on which system. The phone home functionalities we do see in Joomla, WordPress and so on, they do look, if there is a new version available, they do automatic update functions and so on. Infos in the control panel, well, we don't want that explicitly. but we probably want to inform the users better, and we're working on that. And some others have better communication out on their CSV reports and so. There are, I think the Joomla community really do a lot of good stuff in the last few months and years to do a better communication. So we should really look at these things and say, could we learn from them? But on the other side, what do other systems do worse? Some security teams are just attached to one large provider and has done the wrong thing to supply a patch to some customers before the official release. You might, on the right side, it was named the Drupal add-on. For PHP systems at the moment, we do see after a release of a hotfix or the bug fix release, because they couldn't do hotfixes like us, 1.5 hours later, the first automatic attacks to larger providers starts. 1.5 hours. And some of them did not have a 1 hour time frame like we for providing the hotfix to say in that time you should apply your hotfix. Most of the systems have problems with that. Well, the other thing is they only do bug fix releases, so you never know if there comes any functional change into the system. If you just want to have the security fixes, could it be done? For major sites, it's not applicable that you just upgrade to a new version without ensuring that everything works. And if you only have a time frame of 1.5 hours, that's not doable. Only there are in some communities no security information available. What's done? Or there's no security process on add-ons. And we see in those communities the add-ons is the major vulnerabilities. So if we look in our conclusions for ourselves, security itself is one thing, but it depends on the users of Plone to keep Plone itself secure. And it's like for all systems, never use a system as is. If you use Plone just out of the box, you have a fantastic CMS. But you haven't scaled it up for your use, you haven't secured it more, you should do it. And my base recommendation is take at least 15 minutes per day to take your system secure. Look at your logs, look at if there is any updated plugins, systems or something. Look at it, do it. So I say thank you. Go and supply information and any questions. Yes, please?
PSI study, is that what you mentioned?
Yes.
How did they choose the add-ons that they audited?
They did, for both studies, choose 4 stories they want to apply to. And they asked the security teams of each community which add-ons should be applied to solve that problem. So this was even the meaning of having the communication with the security team and seeing that there are a lot of vulnerabilities in the other systems. Yeah.
So I know that for Plone, it's a very small list.
It was 30 in total. No, for Plone it was 4 add-ons.
4 add-ons, and some of the others presumably much larger.
Yeah, I think for WordPress and Joomla it was about 40 or 50 even. Yeah. So for Plone it was the known things like Plone Form Gen. I think, yeah, as it said, we should do it or propose them the add-ons that the normal user would try to use. So there were no specific securities like honeypot, your collective honeypot add-on also. But the normal used in the wild, Plone FormGen, could you remember which else it was? Yeah.
And actually, they misidentified a vulnerability
Yeah.
that found in Plone FormGen as a core vulnerability.
Yeah, and one other applied from the core to Plone FormGen, yeah. So, any other questions?
I know Plone has developed sites for the FBI.
Yes.
Right? So my question is, were there any extra features besides a single Plone installation built in the FBI case, or is just the typical Plone features?
The next talk on the next lot is from Nathan from Gene, and I think most of the things he does for the Castle CMS is probably the same ideas that they have done for FBI in some way.
I will say, if you have a strong security need, check out the Zope replication server.
Indeed.
It is your best friend. You will find you can achieve a great deal while really making a quantum leap
Yeah.
in your protection level.
You could do a lot. So, for example, I have the same setup that I have a Csrf replication to a read-only Zio server, and the front ends are read-only clients to just attach to this Zio server. So the front end, even if it's get hacked, the next system take the system down, put another virtual instance in, and it runs with the same database before. You could not go further. There's a lot of possibilities you can do to protect your sites. And I think the last hack of the FBI was some kind of media wiki page that was accessible to the public, so it wasn't the Plone site. So yeah, and there are other large institutions that are pretty much depending on security. For example, in Europe, there is an institution called ENISA, which is the European Institution for Network and Information Security. It's a level of the European Union federal offices that is responsible for all European nations, European states as one of the security teams. And they use Plone as their website. Any other question?
Can I do a shameless promotion?
Yes.
Like the FBI is, everybody uses the FBI as the example of why Plone is so secure. I work for Radio Free Asia. We host content for Asia to bring news content to central China. We are constantly, China's government is constantly trying to find attack vectors into us.
Yeah.
And we have pretty much a perfect record. And that's not me. No, that's not us. I'm the developer. I'm the one who puts the holes in there. But it's actually the Plone. So, I love that the FBI gets lots of love, but nobody ever talks about Radio Free Asia is not
Or
hacked.
CIA or all the others, yes.
We're a target.
And
we've got it. I mean...
And a lot of
Anyway, that's shameless promotion for Radio Free Asia.
and that's the same for most of militaries around. There's a lot of military installation on using Plone as the base. And it works. Yep. So, thank you.